Heavenly Father, as we come before you this morning, we ask for the presence of your Holy Spirit. We'd ask that you'd continue to pour the latter rain out upon us, that we might understand this message that you're opening to your people at this time. Please guide and direct in our considerations this morning. We thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen. We were reading, we ended with the email that's on page 7, but we never finished discussing all the points in here. So if you have yesterday's, anyone not have yesterday's handout? Not that I know that, not that I have another one. Page 7, where it says June 27th. Hi, Brother Ari, and I think your dilemma is that you're trying to place it all in chronological fashion rather than rightly dividing it based upon symbols. There are many fractals in Daniel 2 where the same story repeats. We are to divide them and parallel them with each other on a line. So if you're following his logic, let's go to Daniel 2. This particular technique that he's suggesting, line upon line in Daniel 2, is a key to uphold what he understands, but it's challenging some other people, okay, with the point and period. So in Daniel chapter 2, I guess the way to express what he's saying is that there are several illustrations in Daniel 2 that are symbolic of midnight to the midnight cry. And you have to take every one of those and just take them back and plug them in at midnight, okay? Does that sound like how you're understanding what his argument is? So let's see what that does in Daniel 2, and see what it does to what we've looked at in the past. And let's take 4 verses each. Brother William. Daniel 2, verses 1 through 4.
And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king of Syria, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation.
Now, if you're not aware of it, the brethren, there's a rather large group in Alabama that follows this message and stays connected with the school. And they sent me an email yesterday that where they're seeing where you see these 4 magicians, astrologers, soothsayers, and Chaldeans, and they're lining them up with the 4 generations, and it fits. So, but it doesn't. The number 4 is kind of like that. And the number 4 has a lot of applications, so it doesn't necessarily. I don't know that they're claiming that it changes anything that we've understood about the 4. But they sent me a diagram where they laid out these 4 across the history, and the way that they put it in their file. When I tried to put it where I could print it out, everything jumped around on the screen, so I couldn't print it out, or I would have today, but go ahead.
Are they placing it from the 4 generations, like from 9/11 forward, or
they're placing, and they've got biblical support for the various labels of these magicians, astrologers, but one of them they're placing from 1989 to 9/11, the next one from 9/11 to the Midnight Cry, Sunday Law, like that. But however they saved it, they have it on a nice diagram, but when you switch it to where you could print it out, it just jumps. So maybe I'll try to work through that. But how do we understand those first 4 verses? Pardon me?
It depends who's understanding.
No, we're doing our understanding, and then we're gonna see how his argument, what it what it challenges in our understanding. How do we understand those first 4 verses?
It was 9/11.
9/11.
Why?
Because
The king was troubled, and there's a call.
And there's what?
There's a call.
Second
A call. Okay.
there's 2 dreams.
Where's the second dream?
Dreams, plural.
Okay.
year. It's in the second year.
Okay, so what's that mean?
Second angel's message, perhaps.
Nebuchadnezzar, is this also second angel's message? Okay, so what's it mean? What does it mean that they spake in Syriac? Okay, it doesn't mean much to us. We've noted it, but Mark's understanding that when you see the magicians or giving the false message, that's represented as a message in Syriac as opposed to the prophetic message.
I don't know if it's valid, but when we were talking about it in that context back then, we suggested at least and never finalized it. You know, like you're saying, we suggested that maybe it was since it's speaking, that it's the changing from what was it?
Civil law to
From say
changing from
the words are escaping me.
the common law to the civil.
Yeah, Roman law to English law to Roman law. That now they're using a different language when they should be using, Jewish or Hebrew or whatever.
Okay.
We've also labeled when that language changes that it's dark sentences.
Yeah.
And those dark sentences sometimes can be a positive thing as far as them being parables. So we've labeled that as a positive as well as, I guess,
Can be a negative.
I have a hunch we're going to find the Syriac is the false latter rain message.
But in Daniel 7, you have that there too.
Yeah, you got it throughout the scriptures. Until you see Syriac, you don't pay attention to how many places in the scriptures Syriac is mentioned. And I've looked at enough of them that you can see they're plugging into here. There was a hand back there before yours. Michael.
I was just going to say that the actual book of Daniel is recorded from this point forward. Is it in Syriac or what language is it in?
Syria.
It is in Syriac?
Yeah, up until chapter 7 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in chapter 7, down
It
to
was
7,
it was
13,
more of a
15,
question.
and 20.
What a question about what?
That it's recorded in Syriac. I
Yep.
was thinking about it.
Okay, so first 4 verses, we're saying second angel arrives because of the double dreams and the double of Nebuchadnezzar. We got a call. We got 4 magicians, I'll just put. And they're going to speak in Syriac. Now, I'm pretty sure that Mark, this being 9/11, what we're saying,
Make one underneath it, like a parallel.
for what?
Make another line so we can keep the 2 thoughts separate, and you can sort of see the distinction.
What he's saying and how we
Okay,
understand it.
I'm pretty sure he's saying the Syriac's here. I tend to agree with him, but I haven't looked at it close at this point. So he would say, I'm not sure what he'd say yet. So what else do we have to take out of those first 4 verses for our understanding? Everything done? Call. Okay, next 4 verses.
Well, we have any troubles up there?
Trouble.
Can't his sleep break from him?
Yep. Sleep breaks
Trouble is twice, by the way.
and trouble twice.
The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if ye shall, but if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. And the king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see that things is gone, the thing is gone from me.
Okay, so I put this up here because people are beginning to see that dunghill is a very significant symbol. The wicked in this history, their house has become a dunghill, and they are the ones that are doing what? Pissing against the wall. So the bodily functions that are the grossest of human beings is something that gets labeled or connected with the wicked in this history. But if you go through dung and dunghill, you'll begin to see lines that it's a symbol. It's not just a casual, derogatory statement. Sister Tanya?
But if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that he can show me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matters. Therefore there is no king, lord, or no ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king require, and there is none other that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon.
Okay,
Here we saw a 3-step process of how the magicians failed there. They could not answer him, and it was a 3-step process.
explain it to us.
In verse 4, the king we will show, they say, we will show the interpretation in verse 4, and verse 7, they say, if the king tells us the dream, we will show the interpretation thereof. And then in verse 10 to 11, they say, we cannot show the king's matter.
You have verse 7. Verse 7. So from my understanding, what we did was we took 2:4, and it says, tell thy servants the dream. And he replies, Nebuchadnezzar replies. And then in 2:7, you have the same thing, tell thy servants the dream. And then you get to 10 and further where it says we can't do that. So 2 times they are given a test to see if they can, and the last time they just say we can't do it.
So where are you going to put that?
We've suggested that that's 9/11 to midnight.
Well, to midnight, or the third is midnight?
Is midnight, I guess.
Okay. Anything else we're missing there?
I was just wondering, how do we ever settle the thing that they would try to gain the time or buy time till the time be changed?
What do you mean? What's the question? Yeah, but what's the question?
If we ever, what does that mean? If we ever settle that?
What does what mean?
In verse 7, the king is telling the soothsayers that I know certain that ye would gain the time or buy the time, and then on verse 9 it says till the time be changed. So I was just wondering if we ever, I think I asked that last time, but we never did speak about it, what that means.
Isn't it self-evident what it means? I mean, does someone have some kind of thought that it's something other than face value, that the king's saying, look, I can tell you're wanting extra time because you don't know what you're doing. And then he's saying that in the verse 7 or the last verse, he's saying you're just waiting for time to get changed so you can figure it out. Isn't
The time change of the son-in-law from the king. When the
Bud?
Pope thinks to change time.
Could you apply that same thought to the fact that he realizes that they are hypocrites?
That's what Jeff was saying.
Yeah. He's recognizing they don't have that.
I was thinking if you could represent the foolish virgin, they have to go buy oil.
I'll go by the time. They're not there yet, but maybe. I don't know.
We've also marked in these verses, these 4 verses that, or 8 verses, that it's a controversy over who has or who doesn't have the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit. Oil. Oil question mark. Next 4 verses. Go ahead.
I think before, but I'm not sure that we the third step of the foolish virgins, we place it or at midnight or before midnight, because we know that
They fall first.
yeah, they fall away first.
So it'd be right at midnight.
Yeah.
Right? Next 4 verses.
For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. Oh,
No,
I'm sorry. And
start
the,
with
and the
13.
decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation.
What do we have in here? A decree. Where do we put the decree?
You know?
What else do we have? A tarrying time. Where's the tarrying time?
Requested time, verse 16.
Verse 16.
Give him time.
We have,
Yes.
Ask for time.
That's a tarrying time?
No.
Maybe,
Well,
I
that's
guess
a
it could be, but we've never labeled it as
It's
that.
a request.
we have Arioch's haste, or I guess it's really not Arioch's haste, it's Daniel's haste, but Arioch's being marked with it.
Where?
Midnight.
The decree is hasty.
When the decree itself is hasty.
And the request.
Arioch, I'd mark Arioch, because you see a structure with him.
And there's an inquiry.
Arioch. How do I spell Arioch? With H?
An H at the end.
H. Arioch's haste. Someone said something and I didn't listen.
Inquiry.
Inquiry.
Inquiry. Where are we putting the inquiry?
Midnight.
Really?
In this context, yeah.
Are we going to put the tarrying time in there?
I wouldn't call
Time.
it
We
time,
called
I
it
would just call it
time.
time.
We called it time.
Well, he asked that he gave him time, so.
It is part of the he was asking in verse 16.
It's at midnight though. Turning down. It's like a different period.
But
Is
I
that-
think this is the point where Mark goes. But if he, I think then he starts this chapter at midnight for the 4 wise men, and then I think this is the point where he goes back to midnight again, and then Daniel goes through the same process.
Yeah. Anything else from our understanding on these verses?
I see answered in verse 14 and 15, so there's a double in there.
There's what?
A doubling there.
14, 15. Answered.
Daniel answered.
And he
then he
answered in
answered.
15?
Walls, maybe?
And so you want to put a double answers. Then Daniel answered verse 14 and verse 15. It's Arioch that's answering.
He answered and said to Arioch.
Oh, he answered and said to Arioch.
So Daniel answered counsel and wisdom to Arioch, and the 15 was he answered and said.
In my Bible, on the other verses, that answer is actually return in Chaldean.
What was that?
The word answered, in
Oh,
verse 14, I have number 4, and it says Chaldean returned.
Calvin return.
Then Daniel returned with counsel and wisdom.
Yes.
Okay. All right, next 4 verses.
Then
It's
Daniel
going to
went-
take forever, isn't it?
We don't have to read the whole thing, we're almost done.
We'll have to read the whole thing?
No, I'm saying we don't have to read the whole thing, we only have a couple verses left.
Okay.
Want to keep reading?
Yep.
Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions.
On this note, the people in Alabama line up Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah underneath these 4 generations, and they plug the definitions of their names in, and it connects with those generations, which is kind of cool. Go ahead.
That they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. And then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his.
Okay, so we got perish. What all do we have in there? Time,
Night,
Night vision.
night, perish,
wise.
wise,
We also have
secret. You got secret,
The secret
Secret's
revealed in the
revealed.
night vision.
secret,
So that'd be your night.
And number 4.
night.
Yeah.
Because you're adding Daniel with,
3 and 1.
And you do that about
and perish is over here. It's implied over here, right?
Right.
I perish, I perish.
We got the second hand too from Ariak, that he got it second hand, like
Oh,
Esther.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's right.
Second hand.
Second hand information.
Midnight.
I guess I'll
I
just
mean,
put second
he
hand.
perceives. That's
Pardon me, Aryan?
in the book of Esther, it's mentioned as in the word perceive. It's
Perceive.
Not, it's not here, but it's the same thing.
A perception.
What is?
He perceives the message, so to speak, from Ariel. And Mordecai perceives that there is a decree. And I
How's
think-
it said in here? And he answered and said, Daniel,
Why is
Daniel doesn't. I don't think you can say Daniel perceived, because Daniel is Esther, and Esther's not the one who perceived. Ariak perceives, and Mordecai perceived, so to speak. Mordecai's really the only one that's marked as perceiving, but if you say Daniel perceived, you're kind of mixing up 2 groups.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It says then Ariak made the thing known to them. So Ariak.
He was just like
He tells it
Mordecai.
just like Mordecai did to Esther.
to Esther. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so how much further you think we have to go?
Verse 25,
Verse 25,
26.
26. Okay, 4 more verses.
And he changes the times and seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that knoweth understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. And I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me now what ye have desired of me, for thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter.
Therefore, you want me to read
Yep.
the next 2? Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation.
The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? What do we have in there?
Query.
Pardon me?
Inquiry.
Where is the inquirer? Here?
Midnight.
Midnight cry.
So we already, haha. Why is it the midnight
This
Cry.
is midnight.
Chronology.
He's
He's
now
before
had
the
the
king.
vision. He's going back in before the king, and we also have Ariok's haste marked once more.
Nice.
And this is what I was saying before. It creates a structure, so to speak, of a haste.
So if this is a valid inquiry back here, you got an inquiry. What else do we have here?
The name change.
A name change. Where's the name change?
26.
Midnight cry.
20.
Midnight Cry, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's where he
But I know that wouldn't be right.
Why?
Depends.
Because Daniel would be entering into covenant right here if he's a priest at midnight.
But he's got.
Is he a
It's a
priest?
point in a period.
Is he a priest? There you go. A point in a period.
We're allowing Ariok's haste. Why would it be wrong to put his name as a midnight cry?
I'm not saying it would be wrong. And I think that he's arguing that Daniel's a Levite.
I was thinking because he got the information secondhand, he was.
So you don't think any priests get the information secondhand?
I don't know.
What do you mean by second?
Secondhand, Ariok tells him.
From
Mordecai
somebody
sends a
else.
message to Esther through Hatach. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And what's the other one?
Ruth.
Abigail.
Abigail gets a message from
men.
Nabal's men. Secondhand. So what did I forget to plug up here that we just mentioned?
Name change.
Pardon me? Name change. Brown?
But it seems like in verse 17, when Daniel goes and makes it known to the three other guys, is that third hand? So who are they then? Because if he hears it from Ariok, then he would be a priest, and then he would go let his three friends know, and they would be Levites. 'Cause
His three friends were right there when he was.
it says Daniel went to his house, and then, so he heard all this, he gathered up the information, and then he went and told his three friends.
Yeah, but where is he getting this
Okay.
secret revealed to him here?
Yeah, I see.
And he's part of a number 4.
So he's a priest.
He's we're not arguing priest or Levite right now. I'm just saying that he's part of a group that's contrasted with another 4-part group. So whatever happens to him is happening to them,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That's the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans,
Yeah.
and then that other 4. Okay.
Hey, Michelle, why are you sitting in the back of class and being so quiet?
I'm listening.
Oh, you're listening.
And this was the receipt.
Okay.
Oh, actually,
There's one up by William.
So any other thing in those verses?
You should go to 28.
You should go to 28. Make up your mind.
Sorry.
All right, 27. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the Australians, astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and thy visions of thy head upon thy bed are these." So what do we want to add into there?
The latter days.
Latter days. And what's the point of the latter days? It's the content of the message.
It's the content.
The secret is latter days.
That lines up with the latter rain of the midnight cry.
Just from ladder.
No, why not? It does line up.
Yeah, but okay. So, is this how we? This is how we understand it. This is how we have understood it. Okay, so we're seeing Nebuchadnezzar troubled at 9/11. All right, and Mark is going to say, yes, he's troubled at 9/11, but the perfect fulfillment of this is midnight. That's what I think he's going to argue.
Can we walk through what we think his logic is? Is that what you're planning on doing?
Are we going to walk through?
Are we going to do the bottom line too and see what that looks like?
Okay, you want to walk me through the bottom line. The problem with this is not big enough probably. All right, so his argument would be that the Syriac begins here, that the trouble, this is midnight. It's the midnight cry. the trouble,
I don't think you have to put all the symbols there. You really don't have enough room for it.
all of this right here.
Just put an arrow.
Yeah. Draw an arrow down.
What happens to this?
That's all really good. Actually,
Everything goes there.
Just draw 2 arrows.
This is how I wasn't going to try to parallel it. I was just going to put it in one big box, midnight to midnight cry. But all of this just goes there.
he makes his first break, or it's not even a break. He starts the story like you were saying at midnight, and then because that's by his logic, that's when the king's awake, and I think there's definitely a validity to the king's waking up at midnight. But he starts the story there, and then he goes through the three steps of the foolish virgins, or the 4 astrologers, Chaldeans, magicians, soothsayers, and that brings you to the midnight cry. And then he goes back again to midnight, from my understanding, and I could be wrong. He goes back to midnight, and now that was the activities of the enemy, sort of. I don't want to say it that way. That's the activity of the foolish. Now the activity of the wise is overlaid with that same history, and this is something we talked about with Elijah and the prophets of the Baal, that these things are overlaid. And then, so now Daniel goes, and this is where it gets tricky for me. I'm not quite sure. I'm pretty sure from what I understand, he starts at the decree to kill the foolish at midnight and goes forward, and I'm not sure how he does it, because I think he puts that time there, but the time is disconnected from the revelation at the end, or the interpretation, because he brings the interpretation back again as well at the very end. So you have, so basically, like you were saying, it's all broken back into little repeat and enlarges back to midnight.
Okay, let's go to, just to deal with the one thing. I don't know that he necessarily is in opposition to what argument I want to put in place, but it allows for his application, but it allows for 9/11 too. Psalm 48.
If you look at the book of Daniel, the beginning of Daniel, the end of Daniel before he dies, at the very beginning of his entering into the work for Nebuchadnezzar, there's a decree for him to die. And at the very end before he died, there's another decree for him to die.
And
The end, the beginning, the end. I don't know if that makes any.
probably Psalm 48. My point is that it's talking about the kings of the earth were assembled to look at Jerusalem. And in verse 4 it says, "For lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together. They saw it, Jerusalem, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail." So, and I don't think this is in disagreement with Brother Mark, how he's approaching it, but this allows us to see a troubling here all the way through, because a woman's birth pains get repeated.
That's what I was thinking too, because even though they get bigger and worse as they go down the line, the kings were awakened at 9/11 to the reality that they're going to have to start dealing with Islam.
Okay, when
Is that wrong?
no, when in the story of David, how many times is he anointed? Where's he first anointed? 1989, and Saul is possessed with an evil spirit from this point on. 9/11, he's anointed again. Where is he anointed there? In Hebron, over Judah. Okay, and then he's anointed here at the midnight cry over the all of it united, and then he's anointed down here at the Sunday law So what I'm saying is this anointing is a symbol of a progressive outpouring or progressive manifestation of the power of God. And Islam is there in each of those revelations. Okay, you got the Islam that we're acknowledging is back there with the beginning of the Taliban in 1989. You got Islam at 9/11 with Balaam. You got Islam at the Midnight Cry with Balaam. You got Islam at the Sunday Law with Balaam. So you have Islam and the manifestation of the power of God at each of these waymarks. My point is that yes, you can have a troubling for the kings at midnight, but you still have troublings at these other three waymarks, right? And what we were sharing, yeah, it's progressive. It gets worse and worse. So it can't just be one singular application. I'm not saying he's doing that, but he is building all of his focus on midnight, right? So what does that do for us? If what we're saying is true and what he is saying is true, what is that possible? Does it repeat? Is this waymark? Do we have justification for saying that this waymark should possess the characteristics of midnight?
Yes, because it's the second angel's message.
Okay, maybe. That's not the one I'm looking for. But that what would the justification be there? How do we define
This is
midnight?
9/11 for the Levites.
Okay, now you go that direction. This is 9/11 for the Levites. That's a good argument. That's close to what I was saying. But thinking in Revelation 9, where we get this structure developed.
It's the beginning and end of the. No, mind, sorry. Of the first woe, I guess. I don't know. If you're going there.
The beginning and the end of the first woe. What's that mean?
I thought that's what you were saying.
No, what I'm saying is that you have in here from midnight to the midnight cry, you have 1449 to 1453. What else do you have?
1840 to 40.
1840. What happened in 1840?
Islam.
This history was typified.
Yep.
In that application, though, 1840 to 44 doesn't line up with midnight to the midnight cry. It's after. If that.
What do you mean?
I mean, were you suggesting that 1840 to 44?
Yeah, I know that a lot of you don't like to go that direction, but you haven't shaken my incorrect application if it is. Where Revelation 9, where do we start Revelation 9? 1989. And where's what is Revelation 9? Brother William, what is Revelation 9?
It's the
Simple answer.
Islam.
A little bit more. First and second woe, right?
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so are we starting Revelation 9 at 1989? And if so, what are we starting there? Everyone should know this.
Fifth trumpet.
Fifth trumpet. And where's it go to? What's the next waymark? 9/11 is the next waymark. And
We started 9/11, right?
you start at 9/11?
We start the first woe at 9/11.
We start the first woe.
First woe. What do you start back here?
Yeah, the trumpet.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So what is from here? What's this
5
period?
months.
5 months. 150 days takes you to this waymark, which is this
1449.
second woe, the
Sixth
trumpet, and we got 1449 to 1453, 4 years, and then we have what?
1453 and then 1840 to 44.
This is Sunday law, right?
An hour a day, a month, and a year,
Hour, day, month, and year,
which is a 4.
which is a 4. But where do we put the 4 of 1840 to 1844? This is Tyler. Pardon me?
Midnight crowd of Sunday law.
Yes, this is Tyler's point, okay, is that when we're dealing with Revelation 9, right here we would put 1449 to 1453. Yes? And time is no longer, so we're not going to address the 383 years and 15 days after you cut 8 years off of it.
Why do you not start the Millerites in 9/11 to the Sunday Law? They went through that whole progression, even if it was in a fast.
I don't know what you're
4 year
talking about.
What?
I don't know what your question means.
1840 to 1844. Why wouldn't you start?
Because this is taken out of the time prophecy of Revelation 9 of 391 years and 15 days.
Okay, go ahead.
It's different symbol.
Different symbol. Easy answer. So Tyler's saying that we worked out that this is also 1840 and this is 1844. Okay, everyone got that? And there's 4. This makes this a binding off with 4. And now, my application, this is what no one likes. No one seems to use it, is at the beginning of the 391 years and the end of the 391 years, you have 4 days, 4 years. Okay? And Jesus illustrates the end from the beginning, so the beginning has to equate to the ending. And now this is the part no one likes. I argue that you can also take 1840 to 1844 and put it right here, based upon the beginning and the ending. Wrong? People don't like that, but for some reason.
That's what we're doing with Millerite history.
That's what we're doing with the Millerite history. What's that mean?
We're taking
What was
1798 to 1844. We're doing that from 1989 to Sunday Law.
Yeah, we're using the beginning and the end and saying they're the same. You got tons of justification for saying that the end is illustrated by the beginning.
We do it as well with 11, 1840, and then saying that's midnight, and which is the beginning, and the midnight cry being 15th of August 1844 is also midnight.
Yeah. Okay. So all I'm saying is, and I'm acknowledging a lot of people aren't settled into it, is 1840 can be marked at this way, Mark 2, and 1840 is a mighty angel coming down out of heaven. Right? Sister Carol?
Well, my question was, can it be both?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's both. It's
And what
it's
is the
history.
argument against having that?
No, people just aren't using it like I would use it. They get nervous if I'm saying that this is also 1840 and therefore you have an angel descending here. And this angel that's descending here is the angel that typifies the angel that descends here at 9/11. So 9/11, yeah, on a few different approaches minimum, what goes on at 9/11 is the characteristics are in midnight also.
For me personally, I like to see the original picture first before you start breaking it down into all these little tiny pieces. So to go through Daniel 2 and lay it out in its original perspective makes more sense than taking all these little pieces. That to me looks like the original, and now you could go back in and do what you're doing, but to start out with a fractal, to me, can cause problems
Confusion.
later on. Does that make sense?
We didn't start with a fractal. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm saying that up there for Daniel 2, that looks like the original to me.
Is this the original? Is that
Or in my mind, that's the original Daniel.
Okay, this is what we've understood in the past, right?
And now you can take pieces of it and say, okay, let's apply this portion at midnight or the midnight cry, but when you go to the original copy of it, that's it.
Okay.
I think that the troubling of the kings at midnight, and I completely agree with you that it's birth pangs, and you see them, you're going to see that symbol throughout. I totally agree with that. But if you do put it at midnight, if you're seeing the symbol there, it makes a lot of sense with other lines. I don't know if it's necessarily correct at this moment, but I know that it makes a lot of sense, and we do have at least that historical.
It's correct. How can it not be correct? How can you not argue? What's wrong with arguing that the characteristics of 9/11 are also at midnight when we have so many prophetic lines that we can uphold that theory.
I'm talking about for Daniel 2 though. What we have to do is look at Daniel 2 and see what that does. And it doesn't necessarily, it changes all that 9/11 stuff, it brings it over there, but you're forced to do a repeat and learn.
Okay, one of the things and Mark is not doing this, so don't equate this to him. We're saying we got to bring all of this and plug it into here, all right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that you eliminate this. Okay, this can be another fulfillment of that. So it can be both, right? So if we plug all of it in here, that's the question. What happens to the story of Daniel? If you may not remember it, but a few weeks back, Tyler went through, made an argument. Not made an argument, pointed out, but we've echoed it. Is that when Daniel's given his message in the first 6 chapters of Daniel, he is standing at the midnight cry. But this is saying, when is he given his prediction? At midnight. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the dilemma we have going on here, this is the dilemma. Is he giving a prediction at midnight, or is he giving a prediction at the midnight cry?
I think that's the biggest thing that's at play here. You know, everything else could change and move and make sense at these different points, maybe, but the biggest thing, I think the biggest dilemma is where's Daniel when he's giving this prediction, because everything is working up to either midnight or the midnight cry in both logics. You know, what Mark is saying or what others are saying, the whole emphasis is on where Daniel is standing when he's giving that interpretation.
And that interpretation is a prediction.
So then for me, verse 16 would have to be accurately marked. That would be the trouble for me.
Verse 16 of Daniel 2. Is that what you're saying?
With no jump backs, just
Then
where-
Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, that he would show the king the interpretation.
Where's that time? And it has to be stable right there.
What do you, I don't know what you mean by
that would be my question. If you're deciding between midnight or the midnight cry, you have to determine where that time is located.
That was my question in my email.
Yeah.
That would be my problem.
2 more.
Yeah, it also equates to him being astonished for 1 hour. When you're using this same principle, that 1 hour is like would have to be just a second.
Where is that? And once you label where that is, then you can go for on either side of it, determining when the prediction is being made. That would be logic to me. Just a thought.
Yeah, this is isolating the problem. Either we're both wrong or one side of this question is wrong. Okay, so so what do we want to do with this? Let's go back to his email. Pardon me. Go ahead.
To put all that in the midnight area, you almost eliminate the 9/11 call, which is the most important call for the priests.
No, you don't eliminate it.
I don't think that he's
I
doing
get what
that.
repeating it.
No, he's not eliminating it. So if this is midnight to the midnight cry, the way that he's approaching it, you have a call. You have the second. Do you have the second angel's message there?
This has been. I see the kings waking up at midnight and all of those things there, but this has been one of the harder things for me to wrap my mind around is the second angel being marked there. You know, we see it a lot often at the beginning of the arrival or the empowerment, but placing it at midnight as the distinct second angel's message hasn't been a symbol that we've seen often. So that's been one thing that's been made me hesitant to see that, but I think all the other logic is in place. So if you're going to explain that, it can be there then. Cool.
Why are we saying second angel's message?
Second. It's second to dream dreams or second year. It's the second angel's message.
Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams,
In his
second year, Pardon me?
That's usually the midnight cry, though. When we put the doubling, we're traditionally labeling it.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I'm not going to make no claim about this, but what I'm saying is if you put it here and it's the second angel's message, okay, those three arguments. If you put it over here, Nebuchadnezzar could be midnight cry. Okay, because we see these doublings. Dream. I don't know about the second year of Nebuchadnezzar. So you got that. We're unresolved about that. But is there a call here? What's the call at midnight?
What we can do too that we've thought about, or that we've suggested, I don't know if we've suggested it in class, is that when he's dreaming this dream in his second year, all of those things, this is all, if you know, we're drawing it on a big line, but that's all on the same day. These are like a couple hours apart, this whole story. So you can very easily say, in my mind, that he dreams his dream at 9/11, but he wakes up at midnight and begins this story. If that's the logic, because you also run into this problem in Genesis 41, that he's in 2 full years later. 2 full years later, he has this dream, and then he wakes up and starts a story. But I don't know, maybe that's not valid.
No? There's a call, the 4 magicians, and all are called. The magicians, and if you put it there, they're all called right here. The issue is, do they have oil? He's troubled. And this doesn't necessarily mean a strike of Islam, right? Because 1449, which we can plug in here, is the distress of nations, the political ramifications of Islam rising up. Maybe it's a strike of Islam, but I'm saying you don't have to have that when you plug in 1838 and Uriah Smith's comment on 1838 and the distress of nations, and 1449. The trouble is something that's happening in the Islamic world that's troubling him. They're going to strike over here. What's the decree here? There's a death decree, but a decree. But what is it? When Arioch comes to Daniel, what's happening? If this is midnight and Arioch's coming to Daniel, where's that also illustrated? Who gets arrested at midnight? Okay, so is Arioch someone that has the authority to arrest? Okay, so this is Arioch is...
That's happening before midnight.
No, that's at midnight. Christ is arrested at midnight. This is
midnight, but they're making all those plans and doing that before. Then you come to midnight. Right?
Who's making all those plans?
To arrest him, to all the activities.
Yeah, but that's not the activities. The behind-the-scene activities are not necessarily illustrated in there. You're adding in your logic. So Arioch's coming to arrest Daniel at midnight. Is this a death decree?
No, you arrest someone, you're not getting a death decree.
They're going to kill Christ. This is right. They're taking him to the cross.
Verse 13
It's progressive.
So both of these are death decrees. So this has got to be the same story, right?
We also have the death decree of Esther, and we also have the death decree of Abigail, that both play into this at the exact same time.
And where do they play in? Right here?
At midnight, yeah.
Okay.
All these decrees.
Okay, so the decree.
But I have a question. How can the king be troubled and then at the identical same time have a death decree? Isn't there can't we have a span?
A span.
There needs to be a chronology, because when he's troubled, then he moves forward with actions.
Okay.
That's what I was
No, I'm pretty sure this is the logic. Arian might have some insight on this because he's been interacting some too. Is that he's approaching Daniel 2 and these other passages in Daniel that when you see a series of events that is a period of time, but that we have already come to understand is a symbol, okay, it's a symbol. What do I mean by that? 1840 to 1844 is a symbol of a glorious manifestation of the power of God. 1449 to 1453 is a symbol of the progressive rise of Islam. Okay, so what he's saying is when you see a sequence of events that you can, by prophetic application, define as a symbol, then you take that symbol and you plug that symbol in where it's supposed to go. And you don't let the sequences prevent you from placing it at the right waymark. Go ahead.
But my concern is that the reform lines are based on progressive history. We've always based them on the waymarks that come in a progressive history. And when we deny that progressiveness in the story that was built in there, I think that can be dangerous, because then everything could be a symbol and you can plug whatever you want in wherever you want.
That sounds like a valid argument, but I'm not so sure that it's addressing his logic.
But it's progressive. He was troubled and then he went through a period, a set of things before there was a death decree put in
Right,
there.
that's my question.
If they had answered his dream, things would have been different, but they had an opportunity to answer it. You see?
Yeah, this, once again, this is the dilemma that we are dealing with. I'm not arguing it. I understand this dilemma. Repeating the dilemma isn't going to solve it.
Well, I didn't know there was a dilemma.
But that's the thing we just read. It's the first sentence in the email we just read. I think your dilemma is that you are trying to place it all in a chronological fashion, rather than rightly dividing it based upon the symbols.
Okay, so if this is a period of time, Daniel goes in and he asks for time. Okay, so you got a period of time here, and you also have in another reference that he's astonished for 1 hour. Okay, that also is going to impact that. What he's saying is that this entire history becomes a symbol. It's a symbol with everything.
In that symbol.
Yeah, we're not denying that there's a progression in that symbol, but if it's a symbol and it has to be placed at a certain point, then you have to thereafter, after it's placed in the right place, consider the chronology. You don't let the chronology preventing you from placing it where it's supposed to go.
So then
That's
the time
argument.
would start at midnight cry.
Pardon me?
So if you're going to take the progression as a symbol and he's troubled at midnight, then the time for Daniel would start at the midnight cry. His time in verse 16.
Yeah, because
If you're going to take the progression as part of the symbol is what I'm trying to understand.
From my understanding, what's being said is that you have just all these repeating larges, so you have a point where you get to where Daniel's there, and now it's new story. So stop.
You jump back.
That's what he's saying.
It's repeating and large is what we
So
typically
you
say.
stop, you get to where Daniel comes in, it's done. That progression is over. So he left the progression. So at midnight, the midnight cry is how he sees it. And then Daniel comes in, and Daniel isn't at the midnight cry now. He comes in, new story, new book, new understanding. And
So
stick
show
it
us
right
the
back.
breaks. I don't recognize the breaks. Show us in this passage where we're to have a logical jump back, because usually the Bible's pretty clear about where to jump back.
Okay, Michael has these counted out. He says there's 6 or 7 here in Daniel 2.
That's kind of.
I might overstate it.
If it's on this topic, because we're almost at the point we might be getting some clarity. If it's on this topic, fire away.
The two group of people that are represented by 4, you've got the soothsayers, there's 4 of them listed there, and then you've got Daniel's 4 friends. One of them, the king is recognizing that they're trying to buy time, and he refuses to give him time. But Daniel is asking for time, and he's given time. So to me, that there's 2 distinct group of people. One that are revealing that they don't have the power to reach out to God, but one says, I can.
do it.
So that's what I see too.
Okay, that's an argument in favor of Mark.
Yeah.
That's saying that when you deal with the characteristics of the 4 Chaldeans, that they have parallel characteristics with the 4 wise, so that they're both symbols that have to be overlaid with one another. Okay?
Except for the fact that we know that the wicked are bound out first.
Yes, this is acknowledged. The counterfeit always precedes the true. And so even if Sister White didn't say that distinctly, she is clear that the falling away first happens before the righteous are sealed. You can show that from several passages. So yeah, the wicked fall away first, but that doesn't necessarily deny that you have activities of the wise and the wicked happening simultaneously. It's
I see the four groups, like, and I'm willing to place them, or willing, I see the application at midnight cry, that you have the four foolish and the four wise, but I still see a beginning and an end, in the sense that you have midnight and midnight cry. So at the midnight cry, the four foolish prove to be foolish, and the four wise prove to be wise, because they give them. So in the end, you still end up at midnight cry giving a message. That's my, if you understand what I mean. Even if you use these two groups from midnight to midnight cry.
Do you understand what you mean? Do you understand what you mean? Yes or no?
Yeah.
What you just said? Okay, come put it on the board.
The four foolish give no message.
That's a message.
The only thing
Talk louder, Ryan.
Talk loud.
Yeah.
Refuse to give.
The only thing I want to say, if you have the four foolish and the four wise, for me it's still this story of the four foolish. It has a three-step process. It has a process. It has a beginning and an end, and it starts at midnight. If we place it between midnight and midnight cry.
Wait a second.
And you have the four
Wait
wise.
a second.
And if you place the story of the four wise on the same spot,
Which we're insisting you do.
yeah, then this story has a beginning, because Daniel comes. He asks for. Yeah, there's still this time element in it.
And above
But
there,
but
no
it's-
time.
But there's this time too here. Then you have the three steps. So
Yes.
in the end, my thing is, even if you do it this way, you end up at the midnight cry giving Daniel with a message, in my understanding. Because Daniel here gives the message. At the end of.
Yeah, that's okay. That's how we
That's the
understand
only
it.
thing I want.
The reason I said no time up here is they ask for time.
And they don't get it.
And he gets time. I'm only giving you a secondary argument that these have to be considered together as one period of time, or one symbol, however you want to relate to it. So that's where we're at on that.
But when they ask for time, they're asking 1, 2, 3, so there is an element actually of time in there because they're dialoguing.
Yeah.
You know, so there is, even though we don't say time because it's just a 3-step process, it still is a span.
There's an argument going back
There's
and
a
forth.
dialogue, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Michael, what we would call this is, here's a passage, this is repeating and enlarging. This is an illustration of what we typically call repeat and enlarge. We're taking this history of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and overlaying it with this history. Where are the other repeat and enlarges that you have a problem with in Daniel 2? He has 6 or 7, he's noted.
No, well, here's the thing, is that I'm apparently misunderstanding. Tyler was just showing me, he only repeated enlarges 3 or 4 times. But what he's doing is, for instance, he goes 1 through 12 is his first section, midnight to midnight cry. That's his first. He said verses 1 through 12 are midnight to the midnight cry.
If we're saying what he's saying is correct.
If
he hasn't
what I
laid this
understand.
out.
He hasn't said this. We're just trying to.
You're analyzing it, 1 through 12.
1 through 12 is chronological?
No, it gives you all the characteristics of this
This is
history.
my point. This is my point, though.
But you're saying verses 1 through 12 is midnight to the midnight cry.
Verses 1 through 12 are pretty much just all midnight. And this is it's just everything's at midnight. This is what I'm saying about 7. This is like 20 repeat enlarges. It's because everything is just at one point in time. is what it is looking like. So from my perspective, it's just a whole bunch of just squishing it all into one way mark. Which is probably, if that's fine, it's fine, but that's what I've perceived about this. So when I said there's a bunch of repeating enlarges, you're going through here, and for instance, the next one would be 13 through, what's the cutoff? For
26 we read to.
24, I think.
25.
26.
So 13 through 25. So that would be the actual repeat and enlarge, where there's one that goes in this period of time and then another. But here again, everything's pretty much just at midnight. You have the time, the decree, the secret, everything is just still at midnight.
The whole story.
So the whole story, everything is just at midnight. There's almost no time at all in it.
Okay,
There's
where's the other
no
repeat and
element.
enlarges?
I think the only
That's what I'm
Where are
saying.
they?
So there's only traditionally how we understand repeat and enlarge 1 through 12 and 13 through 25. There's only really 2, but it's not that's the problem for me. My problem is that everything in the story, even though there's only 2 traditional repeat and enlarges, everything's at one spot. Everything's in one way mark.
Okay, so how would you, if you were going to test that, we're not going to do it right now. If you're going to test the validity of that, what would you do?
I have no idea.
What? I'd go into the rest of the Daniels, 1 through 6 that we've been looking at, and see if all of them will bear the weight of that type of application, or if they will expose it as incorrect. Sister Kathy.
I'm just curious, when he's saying he's putting it all at midnight, I'm just curious, I thought we were supposed to put these lines depending on the context of it.
That's
So
how he's
they-
putting it there. Is the context is what's allowing him to do that. He's saying the context says all these things hit at midnight, and he's got a strong argument for that. He may be incorrect, but he has.
It's not illogical at all.
Yeah, it's very logical. It makes total sense why you would do that. Based on the symbols and all the other stories that he's brought together, it does make logical sense. I just don't know.
Again, I think the premise is Daniel has to be standing at midnight when he's giving that interpretation. And that's what we see from his...
We have to do one thing to satisfy my comfort level, and it's not all about me, and I don't want to be selfish, but let's quit calling it an interpretation, let's call it a prediction, because we're using prediction as a point of reference to a fulfillment down the line, and interpretation clouds that issue. Okay, so he's standing at midnight, he gives his prediction.
The dilemma and the reason... The problem right now is that you have to, what Mark's logic is that you have to see Daniel giving his prediction at midnight, and that's what all of this is in Daniel chapter 2 through 6, is a prediction being given. So he has to be at midnight, and he's made that abundantly clear in his email thus far, repeatedly, that how can you say that there's a prediction given at the midnight cry, because Daniel gives a prediction at midnight. You have to predict something before it happens, not when it happens. So that's why he has to come back and bring everything there. And the problem with that is, in my mind, and I don't know if it's a problem, but when you're looking at some of these symbols, we've seen symbols that suggest either progressiveness or some amount of time. Whether it literally be the time or the fact that the secret gets revealed in the night, things that suggest that this isn't all at one point, that there's some sort of period of time. But if you're going to put everything at midnight, you lose any revelation that could be given to Daniel throughout the period of the midnight cry, or midnight to the midnight cry, because he needs to have that secret revealed right at midnight to be able to give this prediction, if that's what the prediction is, at midnight in Daniel 2.
Sister Brahma.
Because it says in verse 19 that the secret was revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. And so Nebuchadnezzar was dreaming that same night? No, you would say that the night before Nebuchadnezzar had his night vision. As far as laying it out to look at it from that perspective. So he gets his night vision, and then after he wakes up, then he goes into the king with the prediction. Which is how the
A
story...
night vision does not necessarily mean he's sleeping.
Okay,
Yeah, it does. It does. Okay. It does. He's
but
sleeping.
there's
A night
at least
vision
a
is a dream.
2-day period or a day and a half period.
Is
on this.
there? Yeah. In real time, you would think that.
time.
But we're not dealing real time, we're doing prophetic
But
time.
then why would it say he goes back to his house and goes to bed? Pretty much is what it says.
That's the thing. You lose symbols like that where he
What's
would go
doing in
back.
his house?
There'd be several symbols like the time aspect. There wouldn't be any aspect of time that Daniel could be getting this vision.
And the 3 touches in Daniel 10 are pretty much simultaneous touches, right?
They're
Oh, would you
progressive.
But they're
interpret?
progressive.
Yeah.
No, they would have to be simultaneous.
Oh, they would have to be
I
in
see.
this
Based
in
on
this
other
logic. They
lines.
would have
Based
to.
on other lines.
Because that's the same thing as Daniel asking for time, and the time that he gets is where he gets touched 3 times, and we're saying it all happens right there.
Yeah.
But
I think we're forgetting that this is the king that is saying literally. I mean, he's awakened from a dream that he's dreamed it twice, and he's ended up saying, I want my Chaldeans, astrologers, astronomers, and all these things. Anyway, I want them to come in right now. So I could see it being the very same night.
yeah, and I don't think Babylon was big, but Babylon wasn't that big. Just wasn't that big. Okay, the entire city had a wall around it. You can say, Arioch, go over the other side of Babylon, the city of Babylon, and grab Daniel,
Yeah,
the other wise man. It can all happen very rapidly.
the same night.
And if you take the time to read verses 7 through whatever it is, 10, where you have the 3 steps of them not answering, and then saying they can't answer, that kind of dialogue could happen in 60 seconds. Right?
But you said that
But
was
when you
next.
see-
That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about symbols.
But we're
Doesn't
talking
matter
about.
how quick you can go get them. It doesn't matter.
But we're talking
Yes.
about symbols. Like you're saying, we're talking about symbols. So in some ways, time doesn't matter, but some ways does. I think, depending on the context of the story, because, like for instance, the 3 touches we've suggested marks progression. So to say a dialogue is all at one point may be very well true. You know, it only takes you 5 minutes to have that conversation, but in the conversation, the Bible marks out 3 distinct parts to that conversation, which would create a progression.
Yeah, Sister Michelle.
Your logic to go into the other places of Daniel and kind of look if this new rule is, just happening in Daniel 2 or if it's more external. My thoughts would be, if we are looking at the story in the context of the wise and foolish virgins, we should be using that story as an anchor for everything that's happening in Daniel. And if that story shows these things happening,
The wise and foolish virgins.
yes,
Yes.
the things happening at different events, then we should be lining up all the things that are happening in Daniel 2 with the magicians, soothsayers, etc., and Daniel and his 3 friends in that same type of line, anchored by that story. That would be my logic of it.
So what did the 4 Chaldeans say in this story? They say, this is about those that have oil, have the Holy Spirit, and don't. So this is the parable of the 10 virgins. And they can't give an answer, and Daniel can give an answer. So it's, when do the virgins wake up?
I would say
Behold, there is a cry at midnight. Do all the virgins arise?
Arise, yes,
Yes.
at the same time.
And
They're not
Sister White says that awakening is something where the soul is confronted face to face with death. Is the death decree right there at midnight?
And that's how I put it. So some of these things would be happening, therefore, the things that are happening before that time would have to be happening before that time.
The things that would happen before that time would have to.
Yes, before they wake up.
Oh, explain that to me in the story.
King's dream, for example, him being troubled with the dream would have to happen before midnight. If at midnight they actually come
Okay,
to
so
the point.
Nebuchadnezzar dreaming from 9/11 to midnight.
Sure.
How many dreams does he have?
Two.
It says dreams, doesn't say 2.
Yeah,
Joseph
it
has
says
2 dreams.
The
dreams.
minimum 2.
Right, at least 2.
Okay, well,
If you have in the original language, it doesn't show you plural.
in the original language, it doesn't show you plural. How do you relate to that, Brother Theodore? Please do. We got our resident Hebrew scholar. So anyway, back to the email. I think your dilemma is that you're trying to place it all in a chronological fashion rather than rightly dividing it based upon the symbols. There are many fractals in Daniel 2 where the same story repeats. We are to divide them and parallel them with each other on a line. If Daniel is giving a message to Nebuchadnezzar at the midnight cry, who is the prediction being given to at midnight? This is another problem that I don't think, that he's created, that I don't think is valid. Because, and I don't know that everyone's seeing it. Here's, if he's saying, if you're given the message, which he's calling a prediction here at the midnight cry, this is what he's raising. Let me read it again. If Daniel is giving the message to Nebuchadnezzar at the midnight cry, who is the prediction given by at midnight?
Given two.
Given two. For me, I don't know this for sure, but I think he's missing something that we've already come to. I don't think he's missing it. He's had to hear it. He's watching the class, and we're not picking on him. We're using this discussion to push forward. This isn't criticism. But I'm settled into the idea that there's a prediction here, and even a prediction at the Sunday law. Okay, so he's saying if Daniel's giving a prediction here to Nebuchadnezzar, how could he possibly be giving a prediction here to Nebuchadnezzar? And I'm saying that he can be, because God's people are going to give a prediction here, here, and here. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to determine in the passage which prediction is being emphasized. Is it the prediction that's given by the Levites at the midnight cry, or is it the prediction that's given by the priest at midnight? And how did we resolve that? I think this is valid the more I look at it. How did we resolve this?
Lich and snow.
Lich and snow. And what's one of the characteristics about lich and snow that we haven't necessarily said, but is pretty obvious? We've talked about it, but we've never tied it together. It's this.
And then they fine tune it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, but it's not. It's Lich has 2 points where he is marked as giving his message, 1838 and 1840. And Samuel Snow has 2 points where he's given his message, Boston and Exeter. So you got that to say they're the same, but they're giving two different
The messages are different.
the messages are different. One is the tidings of the east, that's Lich, and one is the tidings of the north, that's the closed door of snow. And what does the tidings of the east and the north do? It troubles who? The king of the north, okay? So what we're saying is that Lich's prediction here at midnight is about Islam.
And the other one is about the Sunday law.
And Snow's about the closed door at the Sunday law. But what empowers Snow's prediction about the Sunday law is the fulfillment of Lich's prediction about Islam right here. Is that right? Okay, so if he is actually holding to the idea, his argument's not valid in this sentence here. What I'm saying is, if Daniel's giving the prediction to Nebuchadnezzar here, how could he possibly be giving a prediction back here to Nebuchadnezzar? That's his argument. Okay, and he's definitely giving a prediction at both places.
I have a question about Samuel Snow. From my understanding, Samuel Snow began to give his ideas since February of 1844, but nobody would really acknowledge him. And he progressively spread it out till he finally got to the point that he was able to speak in front of the 3,000 people and then the extra camp meeting. But to me, it looks like he progressively began to trumpet at these ideas about October 22nd, 1844, almost since February of that year.
Yeah, that doesn't deny what Jeff's saying right now.
No, but it's not just 2 points in time. I mean,
No. I'm saying in that progression, there are two primary points that we have identified, and they are definitely primary points. They're July 21st and August 15th. They are the waymarks of midnight to the midnight cry. And then the two predictions of Lich is 1838 and 1840, and we know that 38 and 40 are the same. Okay, so do we know that? Okay, so that's right here. Right here. At midnight. Are you going to tell us about dreams?
Yeah, it's masculine plural.
Masculine plural. It is plural.
Okay, I don't know. I was showing what my sister says. It says a dream. From my husband, it says shalom. And it's the same thing that you find Numbers 12:6, where the Lord says that if there be a prophet among you, I would reveal myself to dreams or to the Mara vision. And it's to dream, in a dream, which is shalom, the same word that is being used there. So that's...
Agree with her or counter her? So we could,
I have no idea what she's talking about.
Numbers 12:6.
No, I'm just saying that that's not the word, and it's halom,
Shalom.
and that's the, and it's in the plural form. I'm looking at it in Hebrew, so.
So,
how can you, in Hebrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
In
switch.
Hebrew, you don't have, unless you're looking at Hebrew, you can't tell whether it's plural or not.
No, I'm saying that this particular word is in Hebrew. It's before the Syriac. Okay, so that would be a question that we would have to throw back that way. How is the prediction given at midnight? We have an answer for that. Therefore, one of the arguments is for him, I guess, for placing everything right here, is he pretty much wants to place everything right here. And in so doing, he's maybe eliminating this light here. Okay, so all we're doing is acquainting ourselves with the dilemma. We didn't get very far through. What?
This is what I add in my response.
Yeah, and that's why we're going through this, is these particular dilemmas need to be resolved, but we're getting acquainted to what they are. Okay, Michelle, Kathy, Michael. Okay, Michael, Kathy, Michael.
it kind of eliminates the fact that we're dealing with three different sets of people, and it's all progressing. When he puts everything at the midnight cry, then you kind of eliminate the progression that goes for the priests, because you would want that time period for the Levites, and then you have that other time period for the 11th hour workers. And for me, to have it all put in one category, you eliminate that progression of the different groups of people that are learning these different things at different times.
Yep, I agree.
There's just something that you had said, and I just want to say this, that
You have 2 minutes.
the prediction, technically I have 0 minutes, but the prediction at the midnight cry, you said, and Mark says this too in another email, but that prediction's given by the Levites.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I just wanted to state that it's given by the priests too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, that's all. I just want. It's during the section of the Levites, but it's not like the priests disappear off the scene. They're there giving this prediction at both at midnight and.
Now, let me read something into Mark's logic that he probably he would disagree with. Okay, but yesterday we got to a point where he basically said, this might be misrepresenting him a little bit, but I'm not trying to do that, is that we're required to know what the sign is, and when that sign comes at midnight, we have to respond to that cry in order to be among those that give the prediction. Okay, so we were dealing with the sign thing, okay? If this is valid, and I think there's a certain amount of it that is valid, because I've understood that you don't know what the prediction is until you go into this history and the Lord reveals it to you. But in order to be allowed to be among those that have it revealed to you, you have to do your due diligence of being a student of prophecy leading up to that point in time. You have to be eating the little book. If you're eating the little book, it gives you the understanding so you can recognize the sign. You respond to the sign and the secret's revealed to you. You give a prediction. You're thrown into this turmoil. Okay? So if this is valid, if that kind of theme is valid, and it appears to be to me, then that's why I would say Levites, because the priests will be giving this prediction at the midnight cry. But the Levites are the ones that are the test there. Are they going to see this sign for them that was predicted back here, understand what the sign is, and by faith enter into that binding off experience, and in turn give their own prediction? But I don't deny that the priests are giving it also.
one thing that Sister White says is, and maybe that I'm twisting her words, and sort of
man.
what you're just saying, is that we don't know what's going to happen at midnight. We know vaguely that it's going to do with Islam, and we know several things, but you and I can't, at least at this point, we can't point to the fact that we know that on, at midnight this is going to happen.
Yes.
So we technically, at some level, don't know what is going to happen at midnight. We don't know the sign yet. To some level, maybe I'm misrepresenting, because she says they're taken unawares by it, and maybe that's a misrepresentation of that. But they didn't know. They didn't know. Is my point. To some level.
Midnight comes suddenly and unexpectedly.
Then my point is, my point is to say that we have to know exactly what's going to happen at midnight before it happens.
No, that's not what he's saying. Maybe that's what he's saying, but that's not how I'm understanding. He's saying that you have to understand what the sign is. And I'm certain of that. This sign here, midnight, I'm certain that this is what? Wait, yeah, not that, but what does it say? It says, this is the very last opportunity for Seventh-day Adventists to get out of the cities. And the get out of the cities is a sign that Sister White marks that has been identified as the abomination of desolation, which was a sign for the early Christian church. It was a sign for the Christian church leading into the Dark Ages. You have to recognize this sign as the time to flee the cities, or you're going to die in the cities. That's the end of the road. So there is you have to know the sign, but that's not what he's saying. You don't know the prediction yet.
I just wonder, can we use the history of Moses to understand the midnight crime, that history to apply it for our time?
Well, I was going to close, I'm already over time. I was going to close with Moses, not quite what you were saying, but what is Moses a classic example of when he goes into Pharaoh repeatedly?
The Sunday law.
Someone that's given a prediction. Okay, the rivers are going to turn to blood. Okay, and where do we place this manifestation of power? The midnight cry. Okay, so but I'm just saying it is valid. This is you're going in. We don't know this, but did Moses know what the 10 plagues were going to be before he arrived in Egypt?
If no pen can even write the horribleness of what's going on, how can we?
Yeah, the horribleness. I'm saying here you're going to be, something's going to be revealed to you. I think it's going to blow your mind. You're going to say, "Oh man, I have to say that." But you're going to see that it's valid because you know prophecy. Something's revealed here. You're going to make a prediction about what's going to happen here. And it's going to cause you grief, and people are going to mock you, and people are going to arrest you. But it's going to be fulfilled right here, just like the waters turning to blood for Moses.
And you're saying that Moses obviously didn't know before he got the word from God that the river's going to turn to blood, for instance. He didn't know what the plagues were before.
I don't know that, but that's my assumption. Yeah.
So at midnight, he's revealed the fact that the water's going to turn to blood, or the locust, whatever the plague may be, and then he goes in and, okay.
Bud, do you want to have a closing prayer?
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for these thoughts that we've had. We pray for wisdom to have a complete understanding. We pray that we can be a part of the number that gives the prediction at midnight. We also pray for your guidance and continued work in our lives. You'll go with us today as we go about our duties and help us to always show that you are our God. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.